Hello everyone. So in the last lecture we had seen the different types of nervous system existing in different animals. Okay, and depending on the complexity we have seen how do they function. And after that we had seen the different types of neurons on the basis of the function and on the basis of the processes, neural processes. Okay, then we have seen the structures of the neuron, the different structure present in neuron, and that's all what we have done. Now we will be starting with the functioning of neuron, how this neuron will be functioning, or we can say mechanism of generating the impulses, and then mechanism of generating the impulse and transmission of it, Okay, so let us start with the first. So it can be also considered as the biochemical aspect of nervous physiology. So we know that all the parts of neuron transmit excitations. These excitations are also called as impulses. Okay, so we can see what are impulses. Impulses are the excitation caused in the nervous system, in excitement, or we can say impulses are the excitement caused in the nervous neuron tissue. Now this although the transmission or the excitation can occur at any part of the neuron, the excitation or the impulses can generate at any part, but the transmission will be always in unidirection. It means that the impulse will be always transmitting from the cytone to the axon, Okay, so the transmission of these neuron impulses will be always in one direction. You have to note it down. It will be always unidirectional. So the transmission of the neuron impulse will be always in one direction, that is from dendrite to cytone. Note it down. The transmission will be always in a unidirection, that is from dendrite to cytone, and then from cytone to the axon terminal. Okay, so dendrite to cytone and cytone to axon terminal. Okay, this will be the pathway for this transmission of neuron, and it will be present in all the neurons. Okay, now the dendrites and cytone usually constitute the impulse receiving part. The dendrites, we have seen what the dendrites are, right? So dendrites and the dendrites and cytone will be receiving the impulse. Okay, so you should know that the dendrites and cytone will be receiving this neuron impulse. Okay, and this will be transferred. This neuron impulses will be transferred to the next neurons through the axon terminal. Okay, so the dendrites will be receiving it will be getting the cytone, and then through cytone it will be transmitted to the next neuron, which will be adjacent to that. Okay, now the axons are specialized fibers. Axons are specialized as fiber conducting impulses away from the receiving parts. Thus the reaction or response impulses are always carried to the effectors by axons. So we have seen that the axons will be always carrying the terminus away from the cytone. Okay, and that is why the term nerve fiber is usually applied to axon. So normally it will be functioning as a fiber. The axon will be functioning as a fiber, and hence we call it as a nerve fiber. The nerve fiber are around 0.1 millimeter to 1 meter, or up to sometime it can go up to 10 meters as well. So the length of the nerve fiber can vary. It can vary from 0.1 millimeter to around 1 meter, and up to, in some instances, it can go up to 10 meter as well. Okay, so let us see the main properties of the nervous tissue. So nervous tissues, that is the neurons, okay, they have got a specific type of properties which are responsible for all its function and activity. Okay, so main properties of the nervous tissue are, the main two are the excitability and conductivity. Excitability, what does it mean? So excitability or irritability, we can say. Excitability arises as the receptors on account of various stimulus such as light, temperature, chemical, electrical or pressure differences, which constantly act on the organism. So what is excitability? Excitability is that phenomena where any external stimulus may be in the form of light, temperature, chemical or electrical differences may be perceived by the receptor cell. So when any external stimulus is perceived by receptor cells, perceiving this external stimulus will be responsible for causing a sort of disturbance in the cell. This disturbance can be in the sense of chemical concentration difference, or can be in the form of electrical potential differences. Okay, so that disturbance which is arising due to any external stimulus, the disturbance arising due to any external stimulus is called as excitation. What is excitation? So it's basically the disturbance caused by any external stimulus, disturbance caused in the cell by the external stimulus. The stimulus can be temperature, light, chemical, electrical, any pressure, anything like that. Okay, now this excitability is basically present in the neuron. So how does happen? Any receptor will be receiving this perceiving this stimulus from the external or internal environment, due to which there will be a sort of disturbance created within the cell, and this disturbance is called as excitability, or we can say state of excitation. Okay, so it is the ability of nerve cells and fibers to enter into an active state called the state of excitation, called as state of excitation, and it is in the response of the stimulus. Okay, next is the conductivity. Now once this excitation occurs, once this disturbance or this excitation occurs, it does not remain at the site of origin only. It will not remain at the site of origin only. It will be carried along to the nerve fiber. It will be carried, or it will be transmitted along with the nerve fiber, and this transmission of the excitation in a particular direction is called as conductivity. So here you can see this is a normal case. Here you can see this is a normal case where the inner negative charges are higher. Inner membrane is basically having the negative charge, and the outer membrane has got the positive charge. But sometimes due to some external stimulus, we will see how it happens. Due to some external stimulus, what will happen? Over here, this positive charge in this region of red colored region, you can observe over here. In this region, the internal membrane has got positive charge, while the external membrane has got negative charge. So it is causing a disturbance. Okay, so it was normal condition, but due to this disturbance, now this state of neuron is called an excited state, or we can say state of excitation, where there is a disturbance caused due to the external stimulus. And this will lead to the formation of excitation state. State of excitation. Now this stimulus which is basically produced over here, this excitation or this disturbance which is produced over here will be transferred, will start moving, will be carried along this axon, okay, and that is called as conductivity, So here you can see, now this red region is not limited to here only. It will be passing this same disturbance to the just adjacent region as well. So when this excitation, or when this state of excitation is passed to the next region, then it will lead to the conductivity of that neuron. So these are the two main characteristics or the properties of the nervous tissue, that is the excitability and the conductivity. Got it? Now, so how we can define this nerve impulse? So it's a wave of reversed polarity. We will see what this polarity is. Okay, so it's a wave of reversed polarity or depolarization, which is called as action potential. So here it was a normal condition, that was inner membrane was negative charge and the outer membrane was positive charge. But when this charges has got reversed, it is called as reversed polarity. When the poles got reversed, then it is called as reverse polarity, or we can say depolarization. And this state of depolarization is also called as action potential. That's the action potential, or we can say the carrying out the state of excitation. And this will be moving down an axon. From one place to another. This action potential will move down an axon and is called as nerve impulse. So what is nerve impulse? How it can be defined? It's a wave of reversed polarity or depolarization which moves down an axon is called as nerve impulse. So that's about the action potential. Okay, now that's about the nerve impulse. Let us see how the mechanism of the nerve impulse, or you can say transmission of the nerve impulse. This is so important. You will have to understand a bit with this graph also. Okay, and we'll see that this one also, right? So what happens? Diagrammatic representation of impulse conduction through an axon. Okay, so now just try to understand it. We will be revising it once again. Okay, how it will be occurring. The nerve impulse, it's so important topic. So the mechanism of nerve impulse was proposed by the Hodgkin and Huxley. The most accepted mechanism of nerve impulse was proposed by the Hodgkin and Huxley, and they proposed a mechanism called as impulse in conduction is given by them is the ionic theory. So the ionic theory of nerve impulse conduction was given by Hodgkin and Huxley. So note it down. So ionic theory of nerve impulse conduction was given by Hodgkin and Huxley. Okay. Now, what does this theory says? This theory says that nerve impulse is an electrochemical governed by differential permeability of the neurulima to sodium and potassium. Okay, which is in turn is regulated by the electric field. So it states that the nerve impulse is basically arising due to the electrochemical differences. It's basically the nerve impulse is arising due to the electrochemical differences, which is mainly regulated by the permeability of neurulima. Now, what is neurulima? You know that it's the membrane of the axon. Okay, it's the membrane of axon. So it is depending on the permeability of the neurulima to sodium and potassium, which in turn is regulated by the electric field, and this permeability is also regulated by electric field. So mainly these are two ions which are responsible for bringing out this nerve impulse. There are two ions which are responsible for bringing out this nerve impulse, that is sodium and potassium. So now you will have to understand how they are functioning. Now let us see, transmission of nerve impulse will be consisting of mainly three stages. Okay, note it down. Transmission of the nerve impulse will be consisting of mainly three stages. The transmission of the nerve impulse, write it down. Whatever I am saying, just write down along with that. So the transmission of the nerve impulse will be consisting of three stages. It will be consisting of three stages. That is, first one is the polarization, polarization. Polarization. Second is depolarization. And third is repolarization. So first one is polarization, second is depolarization, and the third one is repolarization. Okay, so there are three different steps involved in the transmission of the nerve impulse. Okay, so nerve impulse are basically of three types. Will be required three stages. That is, transmission of impulse will be carried out by three stages. That is polarization, depolarization, and repolarization. So first of all, let us start with the polarization. Okay, so here we can see, I'll be showing you here this region. Just note it down. This region. Okay, so this region is now polarized region. What I will call it as a polarized region. Why? Let me explain you. So this region which is marked over here is called as polarized region. Why? Now polarization, or we can say resting membrane potential. Write it down. We can call this as a resting membrane potential also. We can call that as a resting membrane potential. So polarization is also called as resting membrane. It means when the nerve fiber is at rest. It means the nerve fiber is not carrying out this action potential, is not bringing the formation of action potential, and it is not even transferring this action potential. Okay, so this resting membrane is at rest. It means that the neuron is at rest. It is not carrying, or it's not transmitting or forming any type of impulse. Okay, and that's called as resting membrane potential. Now, what does potential mean? Potential means electrical differences along the membrane. Okay, so in a resting nerve fiber, it's a fiber that is not conducting an impulse. You know that. Okay, it's a fiber which will not be conducting an impulse. So the sodium and chlorine ions predominant in the extracellular fluid. So here we can see the extracellular fluid is the fluid which is present over here. This outside this line. Okay, outside the cylindrical line, outside the cylindrical shape. Okay, or we can say outside the neurons. So in the resting potential membrane, or we can say this in the polarization form, the sodium and chlorine, that is potassium, sodium and chlorine ions will be present high amount in the extracellular fluid, or we can say this outside the membrane, they will be in the higher amount. Okay, whereas the potassium, that is potassium K plus, will be dominating in the intracellular fluid, or we can say within the membrane. So here the potassium will be higher, and over there, so outside this sodium is higher, and chlorine is higher, right? While over here inside what we have got, potassium is higher. Inside it has got potassium is higher, right? Now due to this, what happens? But the intracellular fluid also contains large number of negatively charged anions, protein molecules. So along with this potassium, so both outer side the sodium is higher amount, and the inner side the potassium is higher. So both the side they will be having positive charge ions. Okay, but the intracellular fluid, or we can say the cells, the fluid within the cells, will be having large number of negatively charged anions, mainly the proteins. So inside the cells there will be large amount of proteins which will be negatively charged, and hence anions are there. Okay, and when we say about the sodium's ions are 10 times more outside the neuron. Okay, the sodium ions are 10 times more outside the neuron, and potassium ions are 25 times more than inside the cell. Okay, so even outside the neuron also there will be the high amount of sodium and potassium. There will be high amount of sodium and potassium. So you can see the sodium ions are 10 times outside the neuron. Okay, 10 times outside the neuron, and potassium ions are 25 times more inside the neuron, inside the cell. So the outside the neurons, the sodium ions will be higher in amount, and the inside the potassium ions also high, but along with that the negatively charged ions or negatively charged protein molecules will also be present. Due to this, it causes a difference in electrical charges on either side of membrane because of a high difference in the electrical field, because of high difference in the concentration of this ions, because of high difference in the concentration of these ions, note it down, because of high difference in the concentration of ions, okay, on either side of the membrane. Okay, what will happen? The electrical charges will be developed on the other side of membrane, and the plasma membrane will be electrically positive outside and negative inside. So altogether when we see, so here the membrane is basically negatively charged inside and positively charged outside. So membrane will be positively charged outside and negatively charged inside due to the distribution, due to such type of distribution in the cell, due to such type of distribution in cell. Okay, so we know that the concentration of different ions will be different in both the cases. That is, outside the cells positive charges are high in number, inside the cell the negative charges ions are high in number, and due to which what will happen, the concentration will be different, and due to which the potential, the electrical charges will be different on both the membranes, and hence we can say there is a difference. This difference is called as potential difference. This difference which is found in both the membrane is called as potential difference. So inside the membrane will be negative charge is higher, outside the membrane positive charge will be higher. Outside the membrane positive charge sodium ions will be at higher concentration, inside the membrane potassium charge, along with that the anions, that is negative charge proteins, will be also high, and due to which the inner membrane is negatively charged, outer membrane is positive charge, and it will lead to the creating potential difference across the membrane. It will lead to creating the potential difference across the membrane. Okay, now the potential difference across the plasma membrane is known as resting potential. So this potential difference which is present at the normal condition is called as resting potential, and this potential averages around minus 70 millivolt. Okay, that will be ranging from minus 40 to minus 90 millivolt in inner side of membrane. So the inner membrane will be minus 70 millivolt. It means the inner membrane will be comparatively negatively charged. Okay, high concentration of cations outside the membrane compared to the concentration of cations inside the membrane. So this is what we have seen. Okay, so this is the action potential. So resting potential, here you can, on this curve you can see there are three stages. This is the resting potential. It basically signifies the resting potential. It signifies action potential, and this will be signifying the lower will be the depolarization. We will see that. So at resting potential, this is the line suggests resting potential. At resting potential, the membrane will be having minus 70 millivolts. Membrane potential will be minus 70 millivolt. You have to consider it minus 70 millivolt at the resting potential. So at resting potential, or we can say during polarization, when the nerve cell is basically at rest, conduction of impulse or generation of impulse is not taking place. So under that situation, what happens? The outer cation concentration is higher, the sodium will be higher, and the inner cation concentration will be comparatively lower, and the anion concentration will be higher, due to which there will be difference in the electrical charges across the membrane. That will be, inner membrane will be negatively charged and the outer membrane will be positively charged, due to which the membrane will develop a potential that is minus 70 millivolt. So this potential differences across the membrane will be high, so it will be responsible for generating minus 70 millivolt of potential. Okay, and this will be basically called as resting potential. The membrane, the potential of the membrane at this potential is called as resting membrane potential. Okay, next is the depolarization. I hope you are understood. This is the normal condition when the cell is at rest, when no impulse is generated, neither it is generated nor it is transmitted. That's the resting potential. Next is depolarization, which is one of the most important event. So here you can see the depolarization is what? This is the resting potential. You can see this is a resting potential. Inner side is basically negatively charged and outer side is positive charge. Inner side is negatively charged and outer side is positive charge. Okay, so we have seen the polarization, and next is the repolarization. So during the polarization, this concentration of the negative charge will be higher in the inner side and the positive charge will be higher at the outer side. Next is the depolarization. So depolarization is just opposite. So this will be occurring at a specific site under the response of the stimuli. So if any stimuli is present outside the cell, then this polarity of the cell, the polarity of cell will get reversed. This polarity of the cell will get reversed, and this phenomena is called as repolarization. It's called as depolarization. It is called as depolarization. That is also considered as an action membrane potential, AMP. Okay, so what is depolarization? It's the reverse polarization of the normal resting condition impulse, normal resting condition neuron. So when a nerve fiber is stimulated, just let us see over here, when a nerve fiber is stimulated mechanically, this stimulation can be due to mechanical forces, due to some electrical differences, due to thermal differences or chemical differences. So any sort of disturbance, any sort of changes which is taking place outside the body or even the inside of the body as well. So this stimulus will be this will be causing this change in this temperature, change in electrical differences, change in electricity, change in chemical concentration, okay, change in pressure. This all will be developing a stimulus, and this stimulus will be received by the receptor, and the receptor will be connected with this nerve fiber. So this stimulus will be causing this nerve fiber, the disturbance in the nerve fiber, and this is felt at the point of stimulation, which gives rise to a local excitatory state. So whenever this nerve fiber is stimulated mechanically, electrically, thermally, or chemically, due to this type of stimulus, what will happen? A disturbance is felt. A disturbance is felt at the point of stimulation. At the point of stimulation, a disturbance is felt. Now this disturbance will be giving rise to a local excitatory state. So we had seen what is excitatory state. It's basically a disturbed phase, right? Now the site at which this excitatory state is formed, or site at which this stimulation is perceived, okay, at that particular site the membrane becomes permeable to sodium ions. So we know the sodium ions were high concentration outside and lower in the inside. So this sodium ions will be start moving from outside to inside. So the membrane becomes permeable to sodium ions, and the membrane is negatively charged inside and positively charged outside. Okay, so due to this change in the permeability, the membrane will the sodium will get inside the membrane, due to which the membrane is negatively charged outside and positively charged inside. So what happens whenever this stimulus is basically felt at the point of stimulation? What will happen? The disturbance is created, and this disturbance will lead to the opening of this sodium ions channel. This opening of the sodium channel, due to which the membrane will be becoming permeable to the sodium. Now the membrane will be having permeability to the sodium. It means that the sodium ions which were present outside the cell now start getting inside. The sodium ions which were present outside the cell start getting inside, and due to which what will happen after a particular period of time, the charges present inside the membrane will be higher, that is, it will be positively charged, while the outer membrane will start accumulating the negative charge. So because of permeability of sodium ions, the membrane is negatively charged on the outside, and the membrane will be getting positive charge inside the eye, towards the inside. So due to this, what will happen, the polarity of the resting membrane, this is the resting membrane polarity, where the positive is outside and negative is inside, and due to this, what will happen, due to this stimulus and disturbance created, what will happen, this polarity is getting reversed. Okay, and this is called as depolarization. What is depolarization? It's the reversing of the polarity of resting membrane, reversing the polarity of the resting membrane due to opening of sodium channels, under the stimulus. So what is depolarization? It's the reversing the polarity of the resting membrane, due to opening of sodium channels, under the effect of stimulus, different type of stimulus. And this reversing this polarization, reversing this poles is called as depolarization, and it will lead to formation of the action potential. This wave of depolarization, it's causing a wave, and this wave of depolarization traveling down a nerve fiber, so it will start moving down to the nerve fiber, is called as action potential. It is responsible for creating this impulse. The impulse is something what we can call action over here, and hence this depolarization or this change in this polarity of membrane is responsible for bringing out this action, and hence it is called as action potential. In fact, the action potential moves in the manner of the spark moving along the fuse. So if you see the fuse, when the spark is moving from one point to another, the current is moving. Similarly, over here, this will be moving from the one part of axon to the other part of axon. Okay, and this moving action potential constitutes the nerve impulse. When this action potential starts moving from one side to the second point and second point to third point, then this moving action potential called as nerve impulse. And the action potential or this impulse generated is the basic means of communication within the nervous system. You have to note it. The action potential which is generated over here is the basic means of communication within the nervous system. It's a basic means of communication within the nervous system. Got it? So let us discuss this once again. So what is depolarization? So it's also called as action membrane potential or AMP. So it occurs when the nerve fiber is stimulated. A disturbance is felt at the point of stimulation, which gives rise to a local excitatory state. How does local excitatory state is formed? So the membranes become permeable to the sodium ions at that particular point, due to which the sodium will get accumulated within the cell, and due to which the membrane will start getting negatively charged outside and positively charged inside. That is the reverse of the resting membrane. That becomes the reverse of the resting membrane. Now this membrane with reverse polarity, the membrane with the reversed polarity is said to be depolarized. Okay, and this wave of depolarization traveling down a nerve fiber is called as action potential. This is called as action potential. And the moving action potential is called as nerve impulse, and this nerve impulse is the basic means of communication within the nervous system. Okay, now the action potential of 45 millivolt on inner side of axon lemma in respect to its outer side is called as spike potential. So what happens? The action potential will be reaching around plus 30. This is causing the action. This causes the opening of sodium channel, will be causing this. The inner membrane, which was minus 70 millivolt, the inner membrane was minus 70 millivolt, but due to this changing in the polarity of membrane, what will happen? Now the inner membrane will reach up to plus 30 millivolt. This inner membrane will reach up to plus 30 millivolt. Okay, which will cause the action potential, and this will form a wave, and this wave will be now transferring from one point to another, and this movement of this wave impulse will be called as nerve impulse, which is nothing but the means of communication in the nervous system. So this up to plus 30, the action potential will be basically generated up to the plus 30 in the inner membrane. Sometime it may go up to plus 45, and then when it goes up to plus 45, it is called as spike potential. It is called as spike potential. Okay, so the action potential of plus 45 millivolt is found of inner side of axolemma in respect to its outer side is called as spike potential. Okay, so this is how we can see. We have seen two things, that is the first of all the polarization when it was in resting phase, during which the inner membrane was having negative charge and the outer membrane was having positive charge, okay, due to distribution of the sodium and potassium ions. But when the stimulus is perceived, what will happen at the point of stimulation? What will happen? The disturbance is created in such a way that the sodium ion channel will open up, and hence the permeability of the membrane increases towards the sodium, due to which all the sodium will move inside the cell, causing the reverse polarity in such a manner that inside the cell the membrane will be positive charge and outside the cell the membrane will be negative charge. This reversing of the membrane charges is called as depolarization, which leads to generation of the action potential, which may go up to plus 30 millivolt and sometimes plus 45 millivolt, which is called as spike potential. This action potential is responsible for generation of impulse. Now this action potential will move downwards this axon, and this movement of this action potential downwards the axon is called as nerve impulse, and this nerve impulse is responsible for the means of communication in the nervous system. So that's all about the polarization and depolarization. Now the last stage is the repolarization. So when we say last stage, it means that during the polarization and depolarization, there's a difference caused between the polarity, and now the membrane will be restoring its polarization. Because it will not be able to hold that action potential for a longer duration. So the membrane will start restoring its membrane potential by removing out the sodium again from the cytoplasm. Okay, and hence the membrane will get the resting membrane potential, that is negative charge inside and positive charge outside. So let us see how it happens over here. So with increase of sodium ion potential, let us see over here. So this is the case here. You can see this is the resting, this is the, we can say, repolarization. So this is the repolarization. So when this action potential will move downwards the axon. So when it moves downward the axon, what will happen? With the increase of sodium ions inside the nerve cell, when the nerve cells the sodium ions get increased, the membrane becomes less permeable to sodium ions, whereas the permeability membrane to potassium ion increases. So when this sodium ions get increased in the concentration inside the membrane, after a particular period time, what happens? This sodium ions will be having less permeability within the membrane. So the membrane will become less permeable for the sodium ion, and the sodium ions are now pumped out of the cell. And instead of sodium ions, the potassium ions are pumped into the cell. So the sodium ions are pumped out of the cell because of having high concentration, and the potassium ions are pumped inside the cell until the original resting potential of ionic concentration is achieved. So over here, due to this sodium influx, the sodium ion has got concentration higher over here inside the membrane, due to which the positive charge is acquired. But after a particular time, what will happen? Now this permeability will decrease, and the sodium ion will now move outside the membrane. Okay, and the potassium ions will get inside through the sodium potassium pump. This is a pump which you have studied in the cell biology. Through a sodium potassium pump, what will happen? This exchange of sodium and ion will take place in such a manner that the sodium will be removed outside the membrane, and potassium ions will be uptaken by into the cell, causing to acquire the same potential as it was in the resting membrane. Okay, so the sodium ions are pumped out of the cell and the potassium ions are pumped into the cell until the original resting state of ionic concentration is achieved. Up to what? Up to the original state of ionic concentration is achieved, resting ionic concentration achieved. Thus, this makes the membrane negative again inside and positive on outside, which was similar to the resting potential, and this is called as repolarization. It means it has restored that polarization. Okay, so here you can see. So once this is the resting potential up to minus 70 millivolt. When this disturbance occurs, stimulation occurs due to influx of sodium ions, this membrane potential increases up to plus 35, and then after a while again the permeability of sodium ions decreases, and this sodium ions will be removed out of the body, out of the cell, and then it will decrease, and it will decrease up to a level of particular time, and it will again restore this membrane potential. This restoration of the membrane potential will be back to the minus 70, and this is called as repolarization. So here we can see three different phases are there. This is the resting potential. This at minus 70 is the resting potential. It is resting potential, and or we can say it is polarization. It is called as polarization phase. This phase is called as depolarization. This phase is called as depolarization, and this phase is called as repolarization. This phase is called as repolarization. Okay, so we have got three different phases, that is polarization, depolarization, and repolarization. During the polarization, what happens? The resting membrane potential is there, that is inside the membrane negative charge is higher, outside the membrane positive charge is higher. Due to the causing of stimulus, what will happen? Disturbance is created, and sodium ion will get inside the cell, causing the change in the membrane potential in such a way that inside the membrane positive charge is higher, outside the membrane negative charge is higher. Due to this, the reversibility of polarization, it is called as depolarization. It is called as depolarization, which is causing the formation of action potential, which is responsible for formation of action potential, Now, this action potential will move downwards the axon, and this is called as impulse, which is the means of communication in nervous system. Once this depolarization membrane restores back the membrane potential by removing out the sodium ions. The sodium ions will be removed back outside the cell, and hence the membrane will be getting negatively charged inside again and positive charge outside again, due to which the membrane potential will be restored, and hence it is called as repolarization. And this will be responsible for movement of the impulses, and this is how the impulses is created, transmitted, and again created. Okay, so that's about the repolarization. All things are clear to you? Okay, so if you have gotten doubt, you can even ask. So let us again discuss the repolarization. So with the increase in sodium ions inside the nerve cell, the membrane becomes less permeable to the sodium ions, whereas the permeability of membrane to potassium ion increases. Okay, the membrane will become less permeable to sodium and increases to the potassium, due to which the sodium ions are pumped out of the cell and potassiums are pumped into the cell until the original resting state of ionic concentration is achieved. This makes the membrane negative on inside and positive on outside, as the similar to the first phase. This process is called as repolarization. The last movement of ions is thought to take place by an active transport mechanism. So here the movement of sodium will be occurring from inside to outside, that is from low concentration to high concentration, and this has to be done with the help of, because we have seen although the outer concentration of sodium is high and the inner concentration is low, so it has to move from low to high concentration. So this movement of the last movement of ions is thought to be due to the active transport mechanism, which is called as sodium potassium pump, where the sodium is taken outside the body, outside the cell, and the potassium is taken inside the cell. It will be taken care with the help of mitochondria, ATP. It will be utilizing energy, because it's a movement from low to high concentration, so it will be requiring energy in the form of ATP, and hence it is called as active transport. So the sodium potassium pump is a process of expelling out sodium ions and drawing out in the potassium ions against concentration gradient. Okay, so we have seen from lower concentration to higher concentration, and electrochemical gradient. Okay, the entire process of repolarization requires some time, during which the nerve cannot be stimulated again. So this is the time period which will require. So this is the time period. So here this is the polarization, normal resting potential, action potential is generated, and then it is retaining resting potential is again restored. So this at this phase, during which the membrane is basically acquiring the normal resting potential, during this phase no further action potential is basically generated. So the entire process of repolarization requires some time. It will be requiring some time, during which the nerve cannot be stimulated again, and this period is called as refractory period. It's important. So what is refractory period? It's a period in between the two consecutive action potentials. It's the period between two consecutive action potential. Okay, now this period is called as refractory period. During repolarization, as the cell returns to its resting potential, the neuron is ready to receive another stimulus. So once the membrane has got repolarized, after a particular period, it will be again ready to get the depolarization. Okay, so that's all about the mechanism of the functioning of neuron. Okay, so it consists of three phases: resting potential, that is polarization; action potential, that is plus 30 millivolt, that is depolarization, and again back to the minus 70 millivolt, that is the resting potential, that is by repolarization. These three stages are so important, crucial for the functioning of the neurons. Okay, so next, in the next lecture, we will be starting the synapses and the synaptic cleft, and then structure of synapses and transmission and synapses. So let us start with right now only. Let us complete it. Okay. So next topic is the synapse. So this is what we have done. The transmission is basically seen in the axon. In the axon, it means intracellular transmission. Okay, intracellular transmission. Now, as we know that in a whole body, the whole pathway of neural pathway is basically not made up of only single axon. It is not made up of single nerve fiber. Okay, so it will be consisting of lot of neurons connected at each other adjacently in such a manner that the neuron of one, the axon of one, suppose this is the one neuron, this is the axon, so this is the cyton having dendrites, so this will be connected to another axon, another neuron. Okay, so this is one neuron, this is one neuron, and this is second neuron, and this is the axon of neuron 1, and this is the dendrite of neuron 2. So there is some sort of distance present between both the neuron. Okay, and the neuron has to be, the impulses has to be transferred from this to this one. The impulses has to be transferred from one neuron to second neuron. This neuron transmission is basically important. So what we had seen into intraneuron transmission. What we have seen? We have seen the transmission of impulses within the neuron. What we have seen? We have seen the generation of impulse and its transmission within the neuron. We have seen the generation of impulse and its transmission within the neuron. Now, what we need to see? We need to see the transmission of this impulse in the next neuron. The transmission of impulse in the next neuron. So let us start with that. So we will be discussing the interneuron transmission. So before discussing the interneuron transmission, we should be knowing about the synapse. What is synapse? Okay. Now the synapse is an area of functional contact between one neuron and another neuron. Okay. So what is synapse? Synapse is the area of functional contact. It is responsible function. It is functionally useful. Okay. So it is functionally contact. It is a functional contact between one neuron and another for the purpose of transferring information. They are not connected with each other directly, but they will be having a space between them. Intercellular fluid will be present between them. Okay, it will be responsible for transferring the information from one cell to another. Now, synapses are usually found between the fine terminal branches of axon of one neuron and the dendrites or the cell body of another. So they are mainly found in the axons of the fine terminal branches of the axon. This is the axon terminal, which were having this synaptic bulbs we had seen. This is the terminal of axon, and over there the axon terminal will be having this synaptic knob we had seen in the structure of neuron. That synaptic knob, a knob or bulbous structure present at the terminal part of the axon. Okay, so it is called a synaptic knob, or you can say the synaptic bulb. Okay. And so synapses basically are usually found between the fine terminal branches of axon of one neuron and the dendrites or the cell body of other. So here this is the axon terminal. Axon is the axon terminal, and it's the synaptic bulb which is present at the axon terminal. And just after this we will be having another dendrite. We'll be having the another dendrite which is responsible for receiving the signal, or it may be this may be the dendrite, or this may be any muscular junction as well. This can be also the muscular junction depending on the type of nervous system. Okay, so mainly here suppose that is it be the dendrite. So here between these two we have this particular is present. Between these two, this region is called a synapse. So what is synapse? Synapse is region between the axon terminal which contains the synaptic knob and the next dendrite. This is the next dendrite. Okay, this is the next dendrite. So this junction between the terminal of axon and the next dendrite is called as synapses. Okay, this type of neuron is called as exodendritic synapses. This type of neuron synapses is called as exodendritic synapses. So the synapse which is occurring between the junction of axon terminals and the second dendrite is called as exodendrite synapses, while the synapses between the axon terminal and the muscle is called as axomuscular synapses. What is called as axomuscular synapses, while the synapses between the axon and the glandule is called as axoglandular synapses. It's called as axoglandular synapses. So mainly there are three types of synapses, that is exodendritic synapses, axomuscular synapses, and the axoglandular synapses. Okay, so this is what we have understood for the synapses. Synapses junction between the axon terminal and the next dendrite, next muscle or next gland. Okay, right now we are dealing about the next dendritic cell of the cytosol. Okay, now the structure of synapses consists of mainly three things. Structure of synapse mainly consists of, let us say, this is the axon terminal. Okay, this axon terminal will be having this synaptic knob. This bulby structure is called a synaptic knob. This membrane of this synaptic knob is called as presynaptic membrane. So this junction between this region, where this blue color region, which is forming a cleft in between these two parts, cellular parts, is called as synaptic cleft. Is called as what is synaptic cleft? Synaptic cleft is the space. You can see what is synaptic cleft. It's about around 200 angstrom across, and it's the space present between the dendrite, presynaptic, and the axon terminal. Okay, so this membrane is called as presynaptic membrane. This membrane, which is basically the terminal part of the synaptic knob, is called as presynaptic membrane. And the next membrane of the receptive dendrite, the membrane of the next receptive dendrite is called as postsynaptic membrane. Okay, it's called as postsynaptic membrane. And this cleft or this area in between this presynaptic membrane and postsynaptic membrane, the area or the cleft between this presynaptic membrane and postsynaptic membrane is called as synaptic cleft. Okay, and all together three components, that is presynaptic membrane, postsynaptic membrane, and synaptic cleft constitute to form a synapsis. So what is synapsis? Synapsis is junction in between this axon terminal synaptic knob and the next dendrite, and it will be consisting of three parts, that is presynaptic membrane. This is the one which will be the terminal part of the synaptic knob. Next is the postsynaptic membrane. It's the terminal membrane part of the receptive dendrite, and the space present between them is called as synaptic cleft. It will be constituting the synapses. Okay, now this synaptic knob will be having the vesicles present within them. This synaptic knob will be having vesicles present within them, which is called as synaptic vesicle. Now this synaptic vesicles will be constituting a specific type of chemicals. This synaptic vesicles will be consisting a specific type of chemicals which are called as neurotransmitters. Transmitters means these are the one which are responsible for transmission of what? Information. So these are the one chemicals which are responsible for transmitting the information, and these chemicals are secreted by neural cells, and hence they are called as neurotransmitters. So this synaptic knob will be consisting the vesicles which are filled with a chemical substance called as neurotransmitters, Okay, now these neurotransmitters will be now released outside the membrane through the presynaptic membrane. This neurotransmitter will be released outside the membrane through the presynaptic membrane into the synaptic cleft. We will see that how this transmission will be occurring. Okay, so let us see the structure of synapse. Synapses. Now it contains, the synapse will be containing the synaptic vesicles, as I told you, which will be containing the chemical substance called as neurotransmitters, which are responsible for the transmission of the messages from one neuron to the another neuron. Now it will be having two membranes and one junction between this membrane, which will be consisting presynaptic membrane is the membrane of the terminal synaptic knob. Okay, next the postsynaptic membrane is the membrane of the receptive dendrite. It's a membrane of receptive dendrite, while the space present between them, the space present between presynaptic and postsynaptic membrane, which is around 200 angstrom across, is called as synaptic cleft. Altogether, this presynaptic, postsynaptic membrane and synaptic cleft will be forming a structure called as synapse, which represents the junction between two neurons. Okay, the postsynaptic membrane has a receptor site for the neurotransmitters. Now let us see. Now this postsynaptic membrane has got these receptors over here. This pink color receptors you can see. These are called as postsynaptic membrane receptors. These are receptors. These receptors will be specific to the neurotransmitters secreted over here. Now these neurotransmitters will be vesicles will be fusing with the presynaptic membrane. These vesicles will be fusing over here. When they fuse, they will release out its content. This will release out its content, that is neurotransmitter, into the synaptic cleft. This releasing these neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft is called as secretion. This fusion of vesicles will lead to secretion of the neurotransmitters into synaptic cleft. This fusion of synaptic vesicles with this membrane will be resulting in the secretion of the neurotransmitter within the synaptic cleft. This secretion is basically mediated by the calcium ions. The secretion is also helped or associated or assisted by calcium ions. So it will require the assistance of calcium ions also. Once these neurotransmitters are poured into the synaptic cleft, this neurotransmitter will bind to the receptors present over here. And thus they will carry this information further in the chemical form. So in the case of axon, the impulse was carried in electrical form. While at the cleft, at the synaptic junction, at the synapses, this information is carried in the form of chemical. While in the synapses, this information is carried in the form of chemicals. Okay. So again, the neurotransmitters will be present in these vesicles, which are having receptor sites for this neurotransmitter and numerous channels and ports on the postsynaptic membrane. That's what we have seen. The two main neurotransmitters in vertebrates are acetylcholine, that is ACH, and noradrenaline. And although apart from this, there are a lot of other neurotransmitters also present, dopamine, and noradrenaline and all that. So there are a lot of other neurotransmitters also found in the vertebrates, but the main one are the acetylcholine and the noradrenaline. So this neurotransmitter will be released in the synaptic cleft, which will be having the receptors on the next postsynaptic membrane. Neurons releasing acetylcholines are described as cholinergic. The neurons which are releasing the acetylcholines are called as cholinergic neurons, and those releasing noradrenalines are described as an adrenergic neurons. This is something what commonly they are called as. Okay. So that's the structure of synapses, consisting of synaptic cleft, presynaptic membrane, postsynaptic membrane, synaptic vesicles, synaptic knob. That's all. Next is the transmission at synapses. So we have seen that the neural transmission will be occurring mainly due to the electrical impulses, in the form of electrical impulses. But once during the synapses, the electrical impulses will not be able to get transmitted, and hence they have to be transferred in the form of chemicals. So over the synapses, the transmission will be occurring in the chemical form. You have to note it down. In the case of synapses, the transmission of the impulse will occur in the form of chemical. So we can say chemical transmission takes place at the synapses. At synapses, the chemical transmission takes place, while at the axon or at the neuron, it's the electrical transmission will be taking place. Now, how this transmission will be occurring at the synapses in the chemical form? Let us see. So the impulses arrives at the presynaptic knob. As we know that the impulses will be arising at the presynaptic knob, due to which the calcium ions from the synaptic cleft to presynaptic membrane will increase. The calcium ion concentration will start increasing in the synaptic cleft, and it will move from the synaptic cleft to the presynaptic knob. So when the impulses reaches to the synaptic knob, what will happen? It will lead to the opening of this calcium ion channel over here. This presynaptic membrane will be having calcium ion channel, due to which this calcium which is present outside, this calcium which is present in the synaptic cleft, will start moving inside. The calcium ions which were present in the synaptic cleft will start moving inside. Okay, due to which now the synaptic vesicles will be able to fuse with this membrane. Due to this presence of calcium, the synaptic membrane will fuse with the synaptic vesicles will fuse with the surface membrane. Okay, so the calcium ions from the synaptic cleft to the presynaptic membrane, presynaptic node get increase in concentration, due to which the movement of synaptic vesicles will be occurring towards the surface of the knob and will get fused with the presynaptic membrane and get ruptured. So when these vesicles fuses with the membrane, they will get ruptured and will release their contents, that is neurotransmitters, to the synaptic cleft. This process called as exocytosis, and it is assisted by calcium ions. So concentration of calcium ions is important over here. Okay. So this fusion and exocytosis will be basically mediated by the calcium ion concentration. Now the synaptic vesicles then return to the cytoplasm. The synaptic vesicles will return to the cytoplasm of the synaptic knob, where they are refilled with the neurotransmitters. So they are responsible as in packaging structures. They are responsible for functioning as a packaging structure. They will be again filled with the neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters of the synaptic cleft binds with protein receptors molecules on the postsynaptic membrane of the dendrites. As we have seen, these neurotransmitters, which are basically poured over here in the synaptic cleft, will bind to these receptors which are present on the postsynaptic membrane, which will then, this binding action changes the membrane potential of the postsynaptic membrane. When this neurotransmitter binds to this postsynaptic membrane, it will lead to the change in the membrane potential. It will lead to the change in the membrane potential of the postsynaptic membrane, that is dendrite, and that's why opening the channels in the membrane and allowing sodium ions to enter the cell. So it will cause a disturbance and will generate the action potential. So as the receptor will bind to the neurotransmitter binds to the receptors on the postsynaptic membrane of the dendrite, what will happen? They will open up the sodium ion channel, due to which the action potential will generate. And now again this chemical transmission will be converted into electrical impulse. It will generate an electrical impulse by generating action potential, which will be transmitted further by the electrical impulse form. Okay, so this binding action changes the membrane potential of postsynaptic membrane, which will lead to opening of the channels in the membrane and allowing the sodium ions to enter the cell. This causes the depolarization and generation of action potential in the postsynaptic membrane. Thus the impulse is transferred to the next neuron. So this is how the impulses are transferred. So impulse first, which was formed at the receptor neuron, where the action potential was generated due to disturbance caused by the sodium influx. Okay, and then action potential reached up to plus 30 millivolt. Okay, once it is reached over here, then that will be transmitting from one part of axon to the other part of axon. But at the axon terminal, this neural impulse, electrical impulse, will not be able to transfer into synapses. So what is synapses? It's a junction between this two adjacent neuron, or we can say the terminal of the axon terminal and the next dendrite. So that junction is basically synapses, which consists of presynaptic membrane, postsynaptic membrane, and the synapses. Okay, and the synaptic cleft. Now this presynaptic membrane will be, the synaptic vesicles will be present in this synaptic knob, which will get fused to the presynaptic membrane, and due to which, under the effect of the calcium, it will release the neurotransmitters within this synaptic cleft, which will bind to the receptors present on the postsynaptic membrane, which will cause again opening of sodium ion channel, and hence what will happen? The action potential will be generated, or we can say the depolarization is taking place, and against the impulse is generated, and thus the chemical nature of the message is now getting transferred again to the electrical impulse, and it will move to the next neuron. So this is how the impulse is basically formed in the form of electrical impulse in the form of axon, and a chemical in the form of the synapses, in the form of chemical message in the synapses. So thus the impulse is transferred to the next neuron. Neurotransmitters immediately lost from the synapse. Once they basically poured in, after receiving it, the neurotransmitters are immediately lost from the synaptic cleft. In the case of cholinergic synapses, the one which are basically responsible for releasing the acetylcholine, the ACH is hydrolyzed by an enzyme, acetylcholinesterase. So this is an enzyme which will be responsible for breaking down this acetylcholine, which is present in high concentration at the synapses, which is present at the high concentration of synapses. So when this neurotransmitter is released in the synaptic cleft, it will be hydrolyzed by an enzyme called as acetylcholinesterase, which is present in high concentration at the synapses. The products of this hydrolysis are acetate and choline. These products are acetate and choline, which are reabsorbed into the synaptic knob, where it will be utilized for resynthesis of this neurotransmitter. Okay, so the enzyme which present in the synapses will be breaking down this acetylcholinesterase, which is not bound to the receptors. Now that was about the transmission of neuron impulse within the neuron and within the synapses. So this is how the nerve impulse is generated in 3 different stages, that is depolarization, polarization, repolarization, and polarization, and it was transferred from the axon to the different part of axon, and between these 2 adjacent neurons there is a space called as synaptic spaces, or we can say synapses, where the transmission occurs in the form of chemicals, mainly the neurotransmitters, okay, and assisted by the calcium. And once this is occurred, so the neurotransmitters which are basically present inside this synaptic cleft are digested by a hydrolyzing enzyme, that is acetylcholinesterase, particularly in the case of cholinergic synapses, and the byproduct of this digestion will be the acetate and the choline, which are reabsorbed into the synaptic knob, where it is used for resynthesis of the acetylcholine. So that's all for the day right now. In the next topic we will be starting with the nervous system, that will be consisting the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, autonomic nervous system, and then we will be discussing different structures associated with the nervous system and the functioning. Okay, and in the last topic we will be discussing about the different sense organs, and then the chapter will be finished. That's all. Thank you. Have a nice day.